Hi, this is Jerry Conway, and you're listening to Amazing Spider Talk.
Two men who know the angles, uncover and untangle all the questions and the webs left out to tangle. Be in 1962, last Wednesday's afternoon, they'll bend your ears with reckless self-abandon. The Amazing Spider Talk. The Amazing Spider Talk. Come swing through the air, sit back and prepare for the Amazing Spider
Hello and welcome to the Amazing Spider Talk. My name is Dan Gvozden and I'm the founder and editor of SuperiorSpiderTalk.com.
Hey Dan, and I'm Mark Ginocchio, the founder of the Chasing Amazing blog and currently an editor at Superior Spider Talk.
Oh, that's great. Good to hear.
Hey, coming at ya.
Guess what, Mark?
What?
It's the final Essentials episode of Amazing Spider Talk.
Oh my goodness, we've did it. Yay!
We're here, and guess what? We hope you enjoy this podcast and that it provides an intelligent conversation between two fans and collectors as we look at the Spider-Man comic universe in a bit of a bigger picture.
Dan, I don't know if I can contain myself to do the normal intro here with this milestone. It's like our 100th episode all over again. But let me try.
But okay. not as spectacular.
Not even remotely. Anyway, for this episode, we will be discussing our last potential essential comic of the week. It'll be your pick, Dan. Astonishing Spider-Man and Wolverine, the miniseries from like a few years ago. But it's your pick, so you can justify it. By Jason Aaron and Adam Kubert. Then we'll give away some prizes. And then it's been a milestone in other parts of the world too, Dan. We'll be talking with Swarm, who recently celebrated his 6-month anniversary as our B-Book review host, and he's probably going to be touting his accomplishments, I think.
I think you're probably right. I wanted to answer a quick question about how the Essentials is going to be handled from this point on. We're going to do a vote of what ones you guys think are the Essentials, and I know it's a lot to think back on over the past 2 years of all the things we've been talking about, but we're going to do a wrap-up episode, very quick wrap-up episode of the Essentials, and then I'll put up on the site a voting form for you guys to fill out of what your Essentials are. So hold off on that. Don't send us a ton of questions. You will get to vote on the Essentials. Speaking of which, let's talk about the final one. My pick, which I'm going to attempt to justify, perhaps poorly, Astonishing Spider-Man and Wolverine.
With great powers, with also come great responsibilities. Don't grow forward by trying to kill yourself with your abilities. We're not talking about economics, we're just talking about classic comics today.
Man, Dan, with a sales pitch like that, I don't even know why we're having this conversation, but, we still have a podcast to do, so why don't you humor me and tell me why you picked this as an essential?
Well, you've already laid your thoughts out in the tone of voice you've addressed this episode with, so I might as well just put it out there that I don't think that you think this is essential in any regard.
Oh, I don't know about that, but this is your pitch, Dan.
All right,
take away from you.
Well, in a classic Dan Gvozden move, I've got another pick that asks the question: is this just a great comic, or is this a great comic and an essential, or maybe is this even a great comic? Because certainly we've disagreed, like on Spider-Man Reign. But let me tell you why I chose this for my essentials list. Because yes, I think this is a great comic. And I think this is the kind of story that reminds me of why I read comics. I don't think any other medium could tell a story. I mean, they could. I don't think that they would tell a story as bonkers as this story. And as successful, I think, as this story. But I think whether or not you feel like this is an essential really depends on how much value you put into Spider-Man and Wolverine's team-up relationship. And I know that, like, for the longest time, and probably still, Spider-Man and the Human Torch's team-ups were considered, like, primo team-up. Like, that was the relationship. That's the, you know, the kind of, like, rivalrous relationship of Spider-Man's life. But I think in like the 90s and kind of ever since that like Spider-Man versus Wolverine book, Wolverine has also been kind of up there, and people always made a big hay about Spider-Man teaming up with Wolverine. And for my money, this is the best version of that and one of the best Spider-Man team-up stories that there is. It's a little more balanced than I think some other Spider-Man team-up stories where, like, Wolverine is really kind of, like, also a titular character, whereas a lot of Spider-Man team-ups tend to be Spider-Man-focused with an ancillary character or two, or if he's appearing somewhere else, he seems to be the smaller thing. But it's a nice, evenly balanced story, and I felt like, okay, yes, I wanted to include a great story of Spider-Man and Wolverine's relationship, because we did a Human Torch story, and team-ups are a really important part of the Spider-Man mythos, and this is, again, one of my favorites of them. I also don't think that there's really many stories that showcase the versatility of Spider-Man more than this story. I think Spider-Verse was trying to do that, and I think this story kind of succeeds where Spider-Verse fails, in that you get, like, you're not getting multi-dimensional Spider-Man, but you're getting caveman Spider-Man, cowboy Spider-Man, dystopian future Spider-Man, witch trial Spider-Man. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And I think that's a lot of fun. And then this is going to be just a personal taste thing. Jason Aaron writing Spider-Man, that might be enough to just make it essential in my book, because I think Jason Aaron is one of the best Marvel writers they've ever had. And I would love to see him write Spider-Man for a more prolonged period of time. And just to get to read him in this book, and we've talked about a couple of the other comics he's written that heavily feature Spider-Man and how much we like them. But this to me is like him putting his calling card out saying, let me write this character. So, okay, those are my reasons. Mark, how did I do?
I mean, okay. I actually can see the arguments for and against this book. I mean, personally, for me, what I would argue for this book is, you know, I think we definitely need some kind of, I think for this list, some kind of representation of a team-up story. You know, my personal choice was the Spider-Man Human Torch one. I mean, this is kind of like the more modern mirror image of that. Not modern in terms of, I mean, Spider-Man Human Torch is only from 2005, and this is only a few years after that. But yeah, as you mentioned, like the Spider-Man Wolverine bromance, or whatever you want to call it, has, I mean, essentially replaced Spider-Man and Johnny Storm for reasons that you can agree with or not agree with. But that's kind of the odd couple, the comic book odd couple now. And I mean, I do think that team-up stories are an essential part of the Spider-Man mythos. I mean, it's funny for someone who consistently kind of gets slagged for being a loner and for not getting along with others. I think it's those team-up stories, both like in individual team-up books like Marvel Team Up and Avenging Spider-Man, but also like in these like minis and stuff like that, that really emblemize and showcase why we have these opinions about Spider-Man kind of being the sore thumb and the outcast of the superhero universe in Marvel.
And that's true in this story too, I think. Yeah.
With that said, you know, I think it's a great story, and I don't think I'm going to disagree with you on the merits of the story and Jason Aaron's writing and Adam Kubert's art and all of that. But in terms of it being an essential Spider-Man story, I mean, my my issues with it are, first of all, I don't feel like, the rogues that are in this, they're not Spider-Man rogues. They're kind of, I don't even know if I'm showing my ignorance to the X-Men universe. I don't even know if they're like considered big X-Men villains or anything like that. So like,
are you specifically talking about Mojo?
Yeah, we have that. You talked about kind of the time jumping and like kind of the cosmic qualities of the story, which we've talked about this in other debates on this show for the Essentials. I at the end of the day feel Spidey works best as a street level character, and there's very little outside of the bank robbery that's street level about this book. It's
true.
Very not street level. And we'll talk about this probably in more detail too. The relationship, we have a romance in this book with Spider-Man with a character that kind of comes out of nowhere, intentionally so. And again, like, when you're thinking about the loves of Spider-Man and kind of how romance and relationships have worked in Spider-Man's life from an essential standpoint, I don't think the character in this, the Sarah, kind of checks any of those boxes in terms of really emblemizing and accentuating Spider-Man in love necessarily.
Yeah.
Not that she's a poorly written character, but it's like, we've talked about, we've had MJ stories, we've had Gwen stories, and we've had Black Cat stories, and at the end of the day, those are kind of like the girls when it comes to Spider-Man. So, again, I can see the logic in this, and I think there's an argument to be made in terms of, you want to have a team up story, and this is a very good team up story, and maybe that in of itself makes the case. But I think some of these other issues that I just brought up kind of move it out of the essential category for me.
Yeah, I think those are all good points. One other thing I wanted to say about this book, and this might be more like a Marvel oriented comment versus a Spider-Man oriented comment, is that I think this book is one of those few books that really leverages the history of Marvel and the diversity of the content of Marvel to its benefit. We get, from Doom, the Living Planet, to the Dark Phoenix bullets. We kind of get like everything from the Marvel universe in here. But I think what I want to put this in the pro essentials column for Spider-Man is that actually it really incorporates a lot of Spider-Man history in here too. Like when we go to the dystopic future, Spider-Man is a teacher and he's teaching kids, we get to see him in many different status quos that he's been in over the years as a kind of like summary of who Peter is and his character. We even get a moment where Wolverine is sent into Spider-Man, back in time into Spider-Man's origin story to fight him in the wrestling ring.
Yes.
And they're walking down the street and Wolverine's going to go into the bank where they start off at and like rob the bank. And Peter's like, I'm not going to stop you. It's not my duty to stop you, because he hasn't learned his lesson yet. And,
right.
And I think those are kind of clever ways to utilize Spider-Man history to like enhance this team up. I don't know if that's enough to push it in the essentials column, but like, again, I just wanted to highlight some of the cool ways it utilizes Spider-Man in the story.
Yeah, it's definitely clever and it's definitely smart, and I don't think in any way, shape, or form it betrays the characters. I there are parts in this, and when I wrote about this storyline for I think this was number 2 in my best Spider-Man mutant stories. Back when that was like I think over a year ago I did that list for the site. I did kind of joke like, man, like Peter is like Reed Richards level smart in this comic, which I thought was a little bit of a stretch, no pun intended. Oh, I see what I did there. But like I said, I don't think this betrays the characters in any way in terms of their history and who they are and how they would react to each other. I mean, you know, the whole Spider-Man Wolverine dynamic. I mean, what do you think of that? Putting aside this story, like, what do you think of the fact that Wolverine has kind of become the second banana team up mainstay for Spider-Man?
Well, I'll tell you, as a kid, I would seek out these stories. Like, I really liked Wolverine and I really liked Spider-Man, and obviously that's what Marvel was going for, is to, you know, with all these stories, is to kind of get the people who are fans of both to pick it up, and I always prioritized those. I would dig through boxes to find, you know, because I like that dynamic, and I would say I still really like that dynamic. I think it's different enough from his dynamic with the Human Torch to make it one worth focusing on. Like, with the Human Torch, the dynamic is like almost like two pranksters, you know, like trying to outseek each other for the spotlight. You know what I mean?
I mean, one of the things that in Spider-Man Human Torch that Dan Slott hit upon that I thought was really smart about the Spider-Man Human Torch dynamic was, I mean, they're essentially two kids, whereas one is constantly torturing himself over the lesson of responsibility, whereas the other one really never had to worry about responsibility, and that's why they have that love-hate thing going on. With Spider-Man and Wolverine, it's a little, I think it's a little less nuanced than that. It's, you know, Spider-Man is kind of here more of the, I don't want to say the virtuous hero, but the more traditional hero, and Wolverine is the anti-hero, the ends justify the means kind of hero, darker. And, you know, it's an interesting juxtaposition with Spider-Man. But, like, I also don't know if, outside of the fact that, hey, you know, Wolverine's a cool character, if that can't be, if that juxtaposition can't be represented any differently than any other anti-hero, like a Punisher or, you know, a Moon Knight or something like that. You know what I mean? So that, like, that's where, not that I don't like it, I do, but it's always kind of surprised me beyond the sales and dollars and cents of it, why those two characters have kind of stuck together over the last 2 decades or so.
I mean, I think one of the reasons is because there's an easy story to tell about, you know, whether or not to kill or any of these other kind of moral grays that the two characters would find them on the opposite ends of. And I kind of like that this story doesn't really focus on that so much. There's not a lot of, like, hemming and hawing about Spider-Man, like, I'm not going to partner up with you because you kill people. You know, It's kind of like Wolverine. I think in this story, it's a lot more like Wolverine is a lot more matter of fact about, we're stuck here. I don't really care about my actions, and I'm just going to do whatever, because there's not really a sense of optimism from him.
Right.
I mean, and meanwhile, Peter's always trying to solve some problems, and you see how the two of them solve their problems very differently without the kind of, like, overly analytical moral debate that typically occupies these stories. I mean, like, I'd say Spider-Man versus Wolverine is almost all about that until, I think it takes it maybe a step too far, having Spider-Man kill someone by accident, even though that's an interesting route to go. This is just not, it's more preoccupied with having crazy fun in the Marvel Universe. Yeah,
no, I definitely agree with you that. I mean, I feel like the Spider-Man versus Wolverine is more about deconstructing these heroes, specifically Spider-Man, whereas there's no deconstruction here. And that's not a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. I feel like there was, in the 80s and 90s, too much deconstruction because, you know, everyone was trying to, like, out Alan Moore and out Frank Miller each other, you know? Like, Like let's just have some good old fashioned fun, which is what this is. I mean, you know, like as you've pointed out.
But I think the typical Spider-Man Wolverine story is about like creating fusions between the like creating like a chasm between the two characters, and this one is about like bridging that gap to the point that by the end they're blood brothers with each other. And I love that moment, and I love the kind of final image of this book with the Wolverine's glove with the cut in it with the scar healed over. I think it's a pretty cool visual reference for their friendship.
Yeah. Probably only to be outdone by, is it an Avengers book or a Spider-Man book where like they're complaining about Norman Osborn and like fist bumping each other?
Oh, that's in Amazing Spider-Man.
Is that American Son?
Yeah, that's American Son. Yeah.
I just like that little.
It's a cool moment. Yeah.
That little bromance moment. Like, took 8 years to get rid of the last one. Pump.
I need to go back and reread that book.
But yeah, so what do you think about the villains in this comic?
Well, there's like the two kind of thuggish villains with baseball bats and diamonds and all that stuff. Right.
Time traveling diamonds.
I keep wanting to call them Tick and Tack because there are these two performers that used to perform in Washington Square Park named Tick and Tack, who they remind me of visually, at least. But that's not their names. It's like Murderface or something like that. I'm forgetting their names.
They're pretty generic.
Yeah. They're fine. I think there's like an interesting time travel thing where they like meet their older selves and stuff. And Mojo, they're all forgettable because the real stars of the show are Spider-Man and Wolverine. Like,
right. I know, but
would it have been better if it was like Mysterio or something? Probably.
Right.
Mojo to me is always a like cop-out Deus Ex Machina character where it's like things are so crazy it was all Mojo world, you know, or it's like the end of the game, like it was all an elaborate trick for your birthday. Right. But I don't mind it because it's consistent throughout. They seed in the elements of these characters throughout all the stories. I mean, to say this story is great at like kind of confusing you for the first 3 issues, and then that it really rewards on second reading. But they're not strong, but that also doesn't bother me because they're clearly not the focus. Right.
And then of course, what do you think of Sarah, the love interest in this? I mean, it's certainly a random choice to me, and I had some issues with it, not to be one of those readers, but I mean, this was a few years removed from One More Day with the breakup of Peter and Mary Jane, and not that like Peter can never date again or anything like that, but like, we're in a limited series and he's like in a time traveling thing, and it's like, was this whole relationship established to just kind of really, really turn the screw even more from Marvel? Like, and Peter will never find happiness, so don't you even think about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's because you knew it was so obvious that it wasn't going to happen for many logistical reasons, but kind of putting that in tandem with One More Day, it's not like he's had some semblance of happiness since then, and that just didn't work out due to circumstance. I mean, this was designed to fail. For listeners who haven't read the book, he actually is planning to propose to this woman before the diamond in the ring that he's proposing to her with teleports him through time. Yeah, I agree with you. It's problematic, and she really doesn't even really appear as a character until the final issue of this story. I mean, she appears in issue 5 briefly because he's been having these like dreams about her, but it's all been programmed into him by the Mojo people. Like he's carving
those rocks. And there's like a great callback to that in the final issue where he walks by the kind of like Metropolitan Museum of Art, and there's images of the rocks that he had carved. But yeah, I think it's a little weak, and I think it would have been fine if he didn't try to go for an emotional sting at the end, where he like approaches her, and you're supposed to feel kind of bad for him that she doesn't remember him.
Right.
It's also kind of like logistically wishy-washy. There's no real explanation for why she doesn't remember, but everybody else seems to. So it doesn't bother me a ton, but it's a weaker moment in the series. And I think I like the final issue of this, but I know a lot of people had problems with it because it kind of like issue 5 ends with Wolverine becoming the Dark Phoenix, and then in issue 6 they kind of like wrap that up off panel. And I could see you being like, I want to see Dark Wolverine, Phoenix, whatever. But I like how low key the last issue is. It's very like reflective, and it doesn't choose to focus on that big dramatic action. And I don't know, that the solemnity of it is really interesting to me, and it focuses on the bond between Spider-Man and Wolverine, and I think it was a stronger choice, even if it leaves some things dangling, like the Sarah stuff and.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you recall, Dan, I mean, a couple of years ago, I didn't really like this story.
Yeah,
and I think that was because, in large part, the first time I read it, I felt like things weren't resolved properly. Things were missing. Things were off panel, and I will readily admit subsequent reads I had kind of opened my eyes to what makes the story so worthwhile. It's more nuanced. It's more like you say, it's more about this relationship. I mean, to me, it's also, and I think I'm pretty sure he talked about this when he was on our show. Kubert's talk, kind of just the wild ranginess of the art and the locales, and just kind of how it just moves and nothing is wasted. It's very tight, this whole thing. Even putting aside what's not resolved, I do feel like the art is tight.
Yeah. And the story is mostly tight. I mean, like even things like the meteor that's going to destroy them in issue 1 is resolved in issue 6. That like not only did the meteor kill the dinosaurs, it also had all these gems in it, or diamonds that allowed them to time travel. Like, There's cool things like that where like you're like, oh, it all kind of fits into a certain place. Yeah.
So, interesting choice. What else? You got anything else you want to bring up?
You just mentioned Adam Kubert. I can't believe we haven't mentioned him yet in this conversation, because I kind of think this is like the best work he's ever done in his career.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the 3-page fold out of Doom the Living Planet. It's got to be one of the coolest spreads Marvel's ever produced.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly his finest Spider-Man work. That's no question. I mean, and we liked his work on Renew Your Vows, but this is just, I don't know, like this is a wonder of the world in terms of how the art is set up.
Yeah, I love his bearded Peter Parker. I don't know why I like that so much, but I like seeing Peter with a beard. Like, yeah,
no, there was just a lot of like really cool costume and character designs in this comic throughout. I mean, it's so rangy. I love that.
Also, why have I never seen a Spider-Man and Wolverine in diamond bling cosplay?
Gotta make it happen, man.
The Wolverine with the claws covered in diamonds is got to be the best thing ever.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. I mean, this book is hysterical, and I don't know. It's just like, give Jason Aaron more chances to write Spidey, or more chances to write every character in the Marvel Universe, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you got to like take a number in terms of people wanting Jason Aaron on their Marvel books.
Right. I mean, I love his Doctor Strange, man. That book is just out of this world.
It's different, that's for certain. And of course, the Thor is just great.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, very
All right.
cool. I mean, regardless of whether it's an essential, I love this book and highly recommend people check it out. And if you, yeah, I mean, it's something you could have very easily missed. Although most Marvel fans probably would have picked up a Spider-Man and Wolverine book with this kind of talent on it.
Yeah, but it did just kind of like come out in the midst of, what was this, early 2011?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
So, like, Dan Slott had just taken over scripting ASM full time. So, I mean, it, like you said, it could have very easily been missed.
Yeah. So check it out.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, why don't we talk about our super duper fan club, Dan?
Sure.
It's the friendly neighborhood spider talk members club. It's the club with the incredibly long-winded name. Yeah, the friendly neighborhood spider talk members club. Time for new members to get 15 minutes of fame. And maybe even win a prize.
Well, it's the Friendly Neighborhood Spider Talk Members Club. That's our Patreon club that lets you behind the scenes of our show. You're going to get all kinds of awesome things in the mail, from comics to backpacks to stickers to who knows what, T-shirts even. And we also like to do a bunch of giveaways on the show every other week or so. But first up, we have a couple new members joining our club. Mark, I love listening to you butcher names. These ones aren't so bad, but why don't you give it a shot? Who are our new members this week?
Well, the first one is Clint Benesh, and that's probably me butchering it. And the other one is Peter Haggard. I feel like, did Peter write in recently? Because I think I've made fun of the last name Haggard.
You did. He wrote in and he joined our club. So why not? Thank you, Peter and Clint, for joining up and helping support the continued existence of our show. Part of being a member of our show is that you get entered into these raffles, and we're doing a raffle for another comic collection this week, and it's one of our favorites. Mark, what are we giving away?
Yeah, it's Spider-Woman Volume 1. That would be, I'm assuming, the Dennis Hopeless, and, well, if it's the first volume that has some art from... Who were the art people on that? It was before it was Javier Rodriguez. It was.
Oh no, we're doing volume 1 of the relaunch.
My bad. My bad.
Pregnant Jess and Javier Rodriguez, which I think is probably the peak of that book.
Absolutely. Sorry for my misinterpretation.
No, that's totally fine. I'll be raffling that off, and I think a lot of people probably haven't read that, so I hope it goes to the hands of someone who has never checked out that title. So that's very cool. We'll find out in a couple weeks who won it. So thanks again for the support, everybody. And if you want to join our club, head on over to our websites and click on the button that reads, Mark, I'm going to have you say this.
The Friendly Neighborhood Spider Talk Members Club. Why did we name it that? That's my Adam Sandler voice.
Oh, why indeed. All right, let's move on to the next segment of our show, which is the dreaded Swarms B title reviews.
S-W-A-R-M S-W-A-R-M A reanimated Nazi skeleton. A reanimated Nazi skeleton. Reviewing B titles while he's covered in bees. Reviewing B titles while he's covered in bees. Actually, he's permanently covered in bees. Actually, he's permanently covered in bees. He's coming for this podcast, he's coming for you. He's coming for this podcast, he's coming for you. It's time for Swarms B title reviews. It's time for Swarms B title reviews.
So, Dan, it's been about 6 months since the online election that shook the foundations of the fake podcast media to its core. So, I wish we could have marked 100 days, but I mean, that's just a fake milestone anyway, right?
Yeah, it's not like we had a contract with our listeners to mark that anniversary.
Exactly. It's not like anybody has a contract to mark that anniversary, but, people do, and people get crazy about it. But, so speaking of crazy, with Swarm's anniversary coming up, I thought we should have him on and, let's hear from him directly about what kind of progress he's made, his accomplishments. I mean, you know, outside of just being a general jerk on Twitter, I don't know what he's accomplished, but maybe I'm wrong. Let's hear from him. We got to give him a chance, right, Dan?
Yeah, sure. So come on in, Swarm.
Yes, I am back on your show, and I don't know why I'm here because you're all fake news.
Well, you know, Swarm, in the 6 months that you've been on the podcast, which is, you know, despite being fake news, is a real thing. We are podcasting, and you're a part of it. I think you probably would have preferred your old life. You found yourself besieged by some controversy. How do you think you're performing?
Besieged, more B puns, great, yes, you're so great, Well, what you do in fake news, dishonest podcast media you fail to recognize is what an arousing success I have been since joining your show.
Arousing success? You've been accused of collusion with an international bee species. You've blamed your predecessor, Flash Thompson, of wrongdoing without evidence or cause. Not to mention, and I don't like having to admit this to our listeners, but I think our downloads are actually down since you joined the show.
There you go again with the fake news. Fake news! No, you're fake news. Since joining, this has been the most downloaded podcast, period. I am the most successful B-book show the world has ever seen. In fact, I wanted to do my own podcast show. I could do it, and it would be more successful than Amazing Spider Talk. I talked to someone once for 10 minutes, and I know it's easier than this.
Then why don't you just go do it? I can see it now. Swarmcast. Oh, look at you. Look at you with your own show. Just go do it, Swarm.
Maybe I will. Well, hold on. Look at the time. Look at the time. It's time for me to play some bee golf at the Honeybrook Golf Club.
I'm surprised he's not doing frisbee golf.
Oh, Dan, even I thought that's a cheap one. Come on.
Oh.
Well, I guess he really didn't get a chance to defend his record there. You know, we're just jumping down his throat, Dan. I mean, you know, like he's just gonna have to go back to, you know, the summer bee house or the winter bee house down in Honeybrook.
Well, we never said we were news. We're pundits.
Yeah. Well, Dan, since we've last done some B-book stuff, we've had a couple of books of note come out, including a new series, Scarlet Spider #1, and the much ballyhooed return of Eddie Brock to the Venom series. Why don't we quickly talk about Scarlet Spider first, since that's even a little more recent. You know, Dan, I think we were both a little, I don't want to say anxious, because that actually gives it true stakes here, but we were kind of like, what is this book going to be? And, you know, with Peter David, Mark Bagley, two talented and established creators doing a Spider-Man book, with this new Ben Reilly character who's just, you know, anyway. But after reading this issue, I got to tell you, Dan, I'm thinking even more now. What is this book?
It is truly bizarre. It is a strange book. What's strange to me is it does almost no work to establish itself as a #1 of a book. He's in Vegas for some reason. He's got some yet to be determined role in Vegas. He's trying to meet with someone, we don't know who. There's very little in the ways of getting readers on board. This is like, I mean, very niche title with a very odd tone. And that's not to say I disliked the tone. I don't know what to think of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, you know, not for nothing, and I'm not trying to say that Peter David's a one-trick pony, but like, it did actually kind of read a lot like how his first few issues of the original run of 2099 read. Not the original from the 90s, I mean like the reboot from a few years ago.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of smart alecky and smarmy, and Bagley's art is great. I mean, it is nice to see Bagley kind of back in Spider-Man world again, but like, yeah, like this, it's not, you know, I mean, we've kind of had to abandon the idea that we're going to get the Ben Reilly of yesteryear in this modern Marvel universe right now, but like this is really like off the reservation in terms of who this character is, and with that in mind, I just don't know what is this book trying to be? I mean, is this like another anti-hero book? Is this like going to be just kind of a smart alecky book, like for people who remember this character from the 90s, but don't really care that it's not that, doesn't sound like that character from the 90s? I don't, even by saying it's not that it's bad, but I just don't see how this book is going to succeed. It just seems so like without an actual niche or hook.
Yeah, what really confused me is, I don't know if you read the letters page in this book that kind of like is the editor talking to the audience. He's like, I can't wait for you to read the rest of this book. Peter David is turning in comedy gold. You know, like, this is going to be a really funny series. And reading this book, I'm like, I could see where you could think, you know, this is comedic writing, but it's so gruesome. Like,
yeah.
I don't think it's funny. I think it's like demented.
It's almost like Deadpool without the fourth wall stuff.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I mean, we've even got like, you know, his like demented ant friend, and I like the idea that Ben is like creating his own like separate version of Spider-Man's supporting cast. You know, he like saves this woman that looks like Mary Jane, and then is like, you know, nice red hair, you look like Mary Jane or whatever. And then he like starts talking to this woman as if she's Aunt May. I'm like,
Aunt June.
Aunt June? Like, yeah, right. Like,
yeah,
but like,
I definitely wanted to say, do you mean Blind Al? Because that's what you're going for here. I mean, like,
right.
Very Deadpoolish.
But why? Why is the character acting this way? I mean, it's in line with the bizarre character turn in the Clone Conspiracy, in that, like, I understand that this character would have a different philosophy about life and death, etc., but I don't know why he's this kind of like Joker-esque or Deadpool-esque madman. I mean, for me, the only true hook in this is like seeing Kane track this guy down and get rid of him, because like, I don't really want Ben Reilly back if this is going to be what he is. But at the same time, this book is so bizarre. I'm kind of interested in following through on it. But like, I mean, I am not a mainstream audience.
No, and I will be curious to see from a sales perspective how big of a drop between 1 and 2, and then even more so between 2 and 3, because I just can't see. I could be wrong, but like, I mean, even, you know, 2099, it kind of lost the bulk of its readership initially, but it's kind of held steady for a while now, and I think it kind of has its audience, and, you know, the character, for better or for worse, is still in line with what we got back in the day with the character from the 90s and stuff like that. So there's that hook. I mean, this is like basically a whole new character masquerading as an old character, but outside of the name on the front of the book, there's nothing that's tethering that to the past. So,
I mean, say what you will about Peter David, but he has his following. I mean, he raised $68,000 in like a week online just for nothing, for asking for money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Must be nice.
Yeah, it must be nice, right?
Sorry, that sounded bitter.
No, I mean, the guy was in trouble, you know, but like,
yeah, right.
It's not just anybody can snap their fingers and have people show up ready to support them, you know?
Right.
And clearly those people continue to pick up $20.99. But yeah, no, it is a strange title. I like some of the like visual things, like the idea of that the Ben Reilly and like the original Scarlet Spider and the Jackal costume are like manifestations of his twisted mind. But like, is he mentally unwell? Like, does he have a mental disorder? I'm not sure. I just don't know who this character is.
Yeah. Well, they always said that Deadpool was kind of a ripoff of Spider-Man, so There you go.
Complete the circle. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So we kind of go from something that was unexpected and kind of chaotic, but not necessarily bad, to this Eddie Brock Venom thing, which, Marvel, bless its heart, was promoting for months in advance. And, I really, was it Kane who reviewed it on the website? I forget who wrote the review, but, it just I really agreed with the fact that they were talking about how there was no suspense to reuniting Eddie with the costume, to the point where it was just a device, and this whole thing just kind of felt like a device and a gimmick, and I was really let down by it at the end of the day, in terms of Eddie Brock and Venom. What about you?
Yeah, well, I just want to say our review is done by Eric Wilson, who's been doing awesome stuff on the site.
All right. My apologies, Eric.
Kane has been too.
Okay.
They're two big power hitters on our site. I agree. I mean, I think first of all, one of the first problems is that the return of Eddie Brock doesn't really even happen in this book. It's the final page of the book.
Right.
I'm trying to think of something akin to this, and there's just too many to say, because this is a problem that happens a lot in these books. And Mark, would you get into another argument about what's the first reappearance of Venom? Is it Venom 6 or Venom 150 in this case?
No. I'm not going to relitigate that conversation.
But yeah, the character turn of Eddie Brock is just straight up baffling in this. You've got a guy who sees himself as a messianic figure whose main goal is taking out the Venom symbiote, and here he's just snapping a guy's neck and straight up murdering people to get it back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, very, very Deus Machina in terms of we just need to get back to this point because we want to write stories. And I don't necessarily disagree with kind of bringing this version of Venom back, because it has been a while, and things have run its course, but I don't know, you got to do better than this. I think this is just way too swift and random, with no build and no anticipation outside of Marvel marketing blitzing of, we're going to renumber the book, and I don't know, like I said, very disappointed.
Yeah. Which is a shame, because we both wanted this to be good. I think it's safe to say both of our Venom represents a real reason both of us got into Spider-Man.
Yeah. And also, not for nothing, I thought the work that Mike Costa was doing writing this book prior to this was very solid. And I would hate to see his good work get derailed because of, marketing.
Yeah.
How 90s, how 90s Venomish of them.
I'm open to them justifying it in future issues, but if they just kind of gloss past this, it's like throwing away 10 or 15 years of characterization. And it's funny because they featured, I don't know if you read this in the letters page in the back, they featured a letter from the guy who runs the Venom site, saying how displeased he would be if Eddie just comes back and becomes a maniac after what was done in the Wonderful Carnage series. And that was exactly what they did within this issue. So it's his letter appears at the end of the book complaining from the past about what they're doing in the very book itself.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do?
Right. All right, Dan. Well, those are our two B books for the week. And, obviously you can go to superiorspidertalk.com to read reviews from our great team from other B books. So then why don't you get the go home process going? Yeah,
absolutely. Well, of course, like Mark just said, you can head over to our site and you can find all of our new Amazing Spider Talk and our old Superior Spider Talk podcast there. And you can also find them all on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, and also on YouTube. And if you do, please be sure to leave us a rating. That's specifically on iTunes, so that we know what you think of the show and help us connect to other people out in the world. The more reviews we get, the more it gets pushed on Apple's algorithms, and people find our show, and all the happy kismet of people discovering our show continuing. And like Swarm said, our download numbers are down. Mark, heaven forbid, our download numbers go down.
I know. Like, we need to, like, get ahead of, like, those crooked media people and all their, like, juggernaut podcasts right now, like Pod Save America and stuff like that. Come on. Just download and review us and get us back up on the top of the charts, guys.
Absolutely. And also, if you have any opinions on the comics we talked about today or any questions, please be sure to email them to us at amazingspidertalk@gmail.com. Keep them short and to the point. Also, call us at 9RedGoblin and tweet at us with OK to print as a hashtag, and we'll be sure to address and read them on the air.
Short and to the point, Dan. Like you.
How is that so? I'm not that short.
No, I got nothing.
Not all of us can be towering gargantuans like you, Mark.
It's true. I am large and in charge. Also, be sure to check out both of our Facebook pages and subscribe to our brother podcast, The Ultimate Spin, to keep up with the adventures of Spider-Gwen and Miles Morales, and to get some scoops while you're there.
Oh, look at that riff you just went on.
Scoopy scoops. Like, every time I think of Scoopy scoops, I think of like the Tostitos scoops with the salsa. It's delicious. We are not brought to you by Tostitos.
Oh, I was thinking of Kellogg's Raisin Brands. 2 scoops of raisins in every bowl. And
we are not brought to you by Kellogg's Raisin Brand.
How many more marketing blitzes can we go on here?
We're not brought to you by any kind of brand flakes and raisin cereal product.
Mark, I'm actually going to go head out to a rally downtown. I'm going to bring some Pepsi. You coming?
God, it's awful.
Mark, if we wanted to read some Scoopy Scoops that you were breaking on the internet this week, where do we go?
Oh, man. Well, you know, I'm just laughing at your Pepsi joke. You can find me on SuperiorSpiderTalk.com and ChasingAmazingBlog.com. You could also find me on Twitter at ChasingASMblog. And please pre-order my book, 100 Things Spider-Man Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die, available at TriumphBooks.com and wherever books are sold.
That's really exciting, Mark. I can't wait to read it. Hint.
I know you can. My author copies came in, and Dan, I need to drop yours in the mail, so be on the lookout. Well, Dan, you know, after I drop your book in the mail, you can then tell me where we can find you online.
You know where to find me in real life, but if you wanted to follow me online, you can follow me on @SupSpiderTalk on Twitter, or my personal account @Dan Gvozden, where I think still fighting my way through Hyrule. Who knows how much of a binge I've gone on. I could still be, by the time you hear this, trudging my way through Hyrule and reporting about it on my Twitter account. Also, you can check out the comic that I'm writing. That's the book Entropy, and there's a link in the show notes. You can see all the behind the scenes. I'm kind of documenting my slow progress through creating a comic book for the first time myself, and learning a lot and sharing a lot of interesting things. So I hope you join me on the journey. Speaking of journeys, you and I, we've been at this for a while. We've been friends, but also tumultuous enemies. We forged, not enemies, but we're forging a kind of rocky relationship on the back of the annuals. Yeah. You know, it's your classic hero, me, and anti-hero, you, dichotomy. But then there was a time that we got sucked back in time to the moment right before the meteor hit. How did we make it out of that? I remember, but why don't you tell our listeners how we survived the meteor hitting the planet?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, annuals don't count. Second of all,
that's what makes you such a great anti-hero.
I know. Well, you know, it's funny. You know, I was gonna I was ready to just kind of embrace death when that meteor was ready to hit. But then I kind of thought of the old sage-like device of my Uncle Ben. The great Uncle Ben who was murdered by Marvel and monkeys and everything else. Uncle Ben, when I was a kid, he used to take me. He played baseball down at the park, and he had this beautiful bat that would just like in the sunlight would kind of like glitter and gleam. And he would hit the old ball out, and I'd go shag some fly balls. And there was one day I got a little older, and I said, Uncle Ben, can I hit to you now? And he's like, all right, I think your time has come. I'll shag some fly balls, but don't make me run too far, son. I mean, I'm getting a little older. This is so exciting. And I took the bat and I looked at it, and I'm like, man, this bat is like, it's otherworldly, like these guys, the shimmering, like it almost looked like it had diamonds encrusted on it, Dan. So, I hit I tried to lob a little, like a pop up into the infield for him to get. I wanted to kind of be a nice high slow arc, and Dan, this ball it just came off the bat like a rocket, and it just it's horrifying to think about it. It just went clean through Uncle Ben.
Oh.
And he just collapses on the field with a hole through his chest. I'm just so distraught thinking about it. I went to go run to him, and as I started to run, this bat transported me to this other dimension. And then I realized, I saw the same glimmering on the meteor that was on the bat, and that's how we were able to save us. So I thought about that meteor-sized hole through my Uncle Ben caused by this baseball bat. And it reminded me of his other great advice to me, which is, with great podcasts must also come amazing spider talk.